Welcome back to Mountain Laurels. Today, my guests, Willa Johnson and I, are talking about documenting the Appalachian region. There's a long history of media making in and about Appalachia, and that history is super complicated. There may be no piece of media that explores that complexity better than Elizabeth Barret's film Stranger with a Camera. Willa and I talk about Stranger with a Camera and the effect the film has had on both of us and our own approaches to media making. We also talk about Liz, who both of us are extremely lucky to know and have worked with. Willa was even lucky enough to get to train under Liz when she was just starting her career. Now, for those who don't know Willa, she's a filmmaker from McRoberts, Kentucky, but to call her just a filmmaker would be wrong. She's a mom, a foster care advocate, a grassroots disaster response coordinator, a mutual aid wizard, sits on numerous advocacy boards in her community, has trained dozens of young media makers in this region, and is also a really great friend. She also just started a new media project with Invest Appalachia called Worthy Ground, which we also talk about in this episode. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Willa. We're here to talk about Liz Barret, who is a retired filmmaker.
Yes.
From Hazard, Kentucky. And it's fair to say that she has had an influence on both of us, directly and indirectly. So you're a filmmaker, media maker.
Say it louder for the room. Yes.
Media extraordinaire Willa Johnson. But you and Liz, the reason I wanted you to come talk about Liz is because you had very similar paths. Both grew up in Eastern Kentucky. Both sort of found yourself being trained to make media with like that not really being your plan. And then both using media in filmmaking to like really try to capture the truth about Appalachia. And for those that don't know, Liz has an extraordinary film that she made that was released, I think, in 2000.
2000, yes.
Called Stranger with a Camera.
Yeah.
And if you want to just talk a little bit about that film in particular.
Yeah, so that's the film. Whenever I look back on the work that I've done and the media I've shared when I talk about Appalachia, that's the go-to film. That's the top-notch example of to understand the history of media in the region, to actually like dig into the history of why there's distrust, not only with the media, with the government, with stereotypes in the region, because often people try to tell that story. Like it's been done, right? Like since the war on poverty in the 60s, it's been done to try to talk about like, to either people either amplify stereotypes or they try to dispel them, but they never scratch below the surface. And Liz was so extraordinary with Stranger with a Camera at explaining the systemic things that led to distrust of media, distrust of government, poverty in the region in general, dynamics, small town dynamics. And a reason why she did such an amazing job with that film is that she allowed herself to be part of the story.
Yes.
And I think that's where people go wrong, is like people try to tell it from the outside. And I don't think you can fully understand it from the outside. You have to experience it firsthand to be able to represent it. And Liz had built a reputation by this point, and she had garnered so much respect in the media world that she was a trusted voice. And so when she dug into the story and allowed herself to be part of the narrative, it just made it incredibly powerful.
100% agree. And I want to like come back to that. You got to make yourself part of the story here in a second. But also I should say, like, for those that don't know what Stranger with a Camera is about.
Yes, yeah.
I do think that is sort of like a pivotal thing to mention.
Yeah. So actually, Hugh O'Connor is the filmmaker, and he comes into the region. He was part of this project that eventually led to IMAX, how IMAX was created. He had just really been like an anthropological filmmaker, like going to different parts of the world and just capturing what the culture was like. And so in general, that's kind of the take that he was taking, just capturing the community. And this region had so much bad media produced about it that he was just trying to showcase it for what it was. And so from everything I've ever gathered, it wasn't like over romanticizing or demonizing of the region, just flat out documenting the region.
Right. I hate to say coming to make a film about Appalachia, I guess, is like the way you put it is much better. It's like an anthropological look at the region. But he ended up being shot by Hobart Austin. So he was going onto his property, and I think there were some like questions about permission, about whether or not they had permission to film there. And Hobart shot at the crew and killed Hugh. Became a huge sort of story. And Liz, I was reading an interview with Liz, and she was talking about how she was in neighboring Perry County, and she was in high school at the time when it happened. I think it happened in 1967, and it was something that she heard about, but she didn't really register it. Like it didn't feel important to her at the time, which is fascinating because it became such a huge part of her life. Then Liz goes to college, and then she finds herself learning how to make films just as sort of on a whim, which leads her onto this path of like making several films and then making Stranger with a Camera. But back to the subject matter of Stranger with a Camera, I think what you said before about like you have to be in the experience to make the film.
Yeah.
I think that was sort of, if you're watching Stranger with a Camera, that's something, there's many themes that come up for me, but that is one thing that I think about a lot. Like, we are no stranger to, didn't mean to have a pun there. We are no stranger to having people come into the region and try to tell stories about us. They're not for us. And they are for people outside the region that maybe already have some preconceived ideas. I'll just say, disclaimer here, I was one of the, not a subject, but I was attending one of the high schools that Diane Sawyer's infamous 2020 Children of the Mountains was filmed at. I was a freshman in high school at the time. I remember Diane Sawyer walking around our school and then watching that and feeling awful, which led me to media too. But I think like when we think about being part of the story, it's like a fine line to walk, because you don't want to be so protective that you're not telling the truth.
Yeah.
Because some stereotypes do come up in storytelling. Just it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you come from. And then like there's such a difference in like telling a story. The way I would tell a story about my family with someone from here versus someone from New York City. So it's an interesting line to walk, and I think Liz walks it so well in this film. And I was just, any thoughts that you have on that sort of piece in your own filmmaking and in Stranger with a Camera?
Yeah, so it's kind of like, I'll use an example of a sister, because like I have sisters, and like you can get frustrated and mad at them, and you can say something about your sister critical, but the second someone else says it, you're like, hold up, you don't understand the whole story. Exactly. And Liz told the story of East Kentucky like it was her sister, She was critical. She dissected things, but also like she pulled back layers and let you see like even layers, like the fact that Hobart, who was the shooter, was a lifelong bachelor and growing up in East Kentucky in a time, and like she doesn't imply anything, but it pulls back a layer to make you think like, well, what were some of the things that he may have lived with or without in his life that led to some of his mental illness in a way, So one reason why I'm happy to talk about Elizabeth, and sorry, I'm skipping around.
No, it's okay.
Is that for years I went through a youth media training program and got to meet Liz there and hear her answer questions. But then later I taught that youth program for years. And so every summer, Stranger with the Camera Day became like my favorite day because every summer I got to watch 18-year-olds experience this film for the first time. And there was always a variety of questions, but also hearing Elizabeth, I always learned something new from her experience every year. And I think with the narration in that, she had talked about how she didn't want to narrate it. She didn't want to be a part of it. And it became so crucial that she became the connecting thread through that story as a filmmaker, because the story is like, how do you responsibly film a community if you're not a part of it or if you are a part of it? Like that there's power behind a camera. And Liz was so crucial in me realizing that a camera is essentially a weapon.
Oh, yeah.
And I think when I think back about media literacy and I think about propaganda in today's world, Liz is the true north that I really followed about understanding like what questions to ask beneath the headline.
Yeah.
And it's why that film has remained so popular. It's why it's remained relevant. And I recommend it to literally any time I'm talking to someone who's wanting to document any community. I'm like, you need to watch Stranger with a Camera, because it may not be the same community, but I guarantee you that community is dealing with its own stereotypes, its own misconceptions. And this film is going to have you understand like why you need to dig deeper. You know, I struggle with when I should be a part of a story myself in the media I create. And I think seeing Liz do it kind of gave me permission to be like, I'm telling the story because it matters to me. And like, I think I need to explain why it matters to me.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. There's so much that film taught me when I watched it for the first time. And it's also, there's this other piece, and this may be, it's something that like, I also taught the same program. Just I taught youth too how to make media. Something that we always talked about too as part of the film is how it is a story of forgiveness. And it's one of the most powerful stories of forgiveness that I've ever seen. And I always wonder, and I'm wondering if you know this because you got to talk to Liz so much about it. Was that something that Liz was expecting to happen?
No. She talked about once, and she cried with a group of students, talking about how she learned forgiveness. So part of the story, and again, like this is, the whole story is about the murder of someone and the journey that people take as like the community is trying to understand why he did it, or some forgave him immediately for why he did it. Some struggled with it. The filmmakers who were part of the team, you know, having to come to terms with it. Just county politics, state politics that played into it, the national media. And Liz, who at the time when it happened is like a homecoming queen in her hometown, and then later turned filmmaker. And so there's just all these different stories that lead into it. But one of the interviews that she does is years later with Hugh O'Connor's daughter in Canada. And she talks about forgiving him. And I think Liz said like that was such a powerful moment for her, and one she did not expect, because, you know, it would be hard to forgive someone who took away your father at such a young age. But I think that was the power of Liz too, is that she was able to break it down from more than just a property dispute. She was able to dissect how an entire region of people had felt misrepresented. And I think she does not give herself credit enough for the fact that she created that space for forgiveness. It was always really amazing to see Elizabeth have so much power and not realize that she had so much power, or not take up that credit the way she should have.
Yeah.
But I think she's really...
tale as old as time with women.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that was the fun thing about, like, that was the first time I learned that, you know, she was really shocked to see that forgiveness be given, But every year when I heard Elizabeth talk about Stranger with a Camera, I cried. She cried. The kids cried.
Yeah.
Because you would learn a new piece. Like you would learn about, the courthouse drama behind it, or more about the IMAX experience. You just learn something new because she invested so many years into this.
Yeah. I mean, you just mentioned she invested so many years. She started filming in 1991.
Yeah.
For this film.
Yeah.
I think that's something that also gets lost a little bit in the conversation about
Yeah.
it, is like she worked for the better part of the 90s making this film, doing the work, and it really comes through in the film. It's just so intentional and so well made.
Yeah, and it's so powerful too. Like one of the things I was going to say is like, so in the film, she breaks down like the history of poverty and what I call poverty porn of the region, where people are like coming in, and like I have come to realize, like, anytime America is struggling in general, Appalachia becomes the poster child of like, we might be struggling, but we're not as bad off as it is over here. And don't you feel better?
Yeah.
Like, look at these poor kids. They want Hannah Montana boots. Don't you feel better that you can give your kid those Hannah Montana boots? And so like, the recession,
we are it could always be worse.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah. We're that example. And Liz kind of dissects that, not necessarily through that lens, but she dissects that in a way that, you see like the Christmas in Appalachia special from CBS. She features like the sad black and white footage of walking up to a one-room schoolhouse while little children sing Christmas carols because they don't have Christmas at home. It's just this like, she does that. But one thing I always appreciate too is like she showcases Hugh's work. And I always really thought the scene he was shooting was beautiful. And so the scene he's shooting is Hobart is the landlord and of a series of cabins. And the miner who lived there had just got off work and came home, and he was covered in dirt and coal dust, and he's out on his front porch, and he picks up his small child and has his child on his lap, and Hobart and his team stopped and said, "Can we capture this on film?" And he gave permission. And then Hobart pulls up and is like, "How dare you film my cabins and try to make us look poor?" Like he internalized all this bad media that had been made. And all these bad portrayals also made me internalize a little bit that he didn't take care of his properties the way he should. But he shot. He argued. They were trying to load up, and he shot and killed him. But whenever she shows that scene in that movie, to me, it is so beautiful. And it's heartbreakingly beautiful because it's like we are taught to be insecure about everything, that we're a joke here for media about everything, that even whenever we're showcasing hardship, but it's still beautiful, we can't take pride in that. And so like that is, I think that comes through in her work. She pays homage to Hugh in a few different places while also not making Hobart a total villain.
Yeah.
But I really always appreciate that scene because I have spent years showing, good media, bad media about Appalachia. And that scene from Hugh O'Connor is so unproblematic compared to other things I've seen.
Yeah, and it's just, again, just the way she was able to walk that line of like showing the reality without diving too deep. And it's interesting that you say that, like showing the hardship in a way that's like beautiful, because it isn't something that I'll just say I struggle with it quite a bit. And I think that that's why I'm always drawn to like myself. If I'm capturing something, I want it to be nature related.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've just recently noticed in myself. And I've never been comfortable taking people's like portraits. I've never been comfortable, which is funny because I did teach kids how to do this. I never felt comfortable just like filming someone.
Yeah.
It's also why I'm doing a podcast and I'm not doing something else. But it's just, I think it comes from a place of like me being uncomfortable. But at the same time, I recognize that I was taught to be uncomfortable. And you mentioned like that camera can be a weapon. And I think that like this whole incident, it really is, I think it's ingrained more deeply in people than like than I realized. I remember the story of someone was coming to do oral histories with my husband's grandmother. And I think she maybe got the impression that it was just going to be like a written thing and didn't realize. And as soon as the person got the microphone out, she said, "Get that gun out of my face."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think about that all the time, especially when I'm like making something, because it's just such a hard, it's like I'm in the space where I can feel the feelings that Hugh had, and I can also feel the feelings that Hobart had.
Yes.
And I mean, obviously Liz was also in that space, and that's why this film is done so well.
It's why she had to tell the story. She was the bridge that no one else could bridge. And it was important that she was from the region to tell it.
Yes.
And you know, in art and work in Appalachia, there's always this insider-outsider dynamic. And often I've been made to feel bad to be like a little bit territorial. But I think it's because I've seen when it's done really well, it's done from someone who truly understands it. And that doesn't mean you can't come here and invest and ingrain and become part of the story. I think Barbara Koppel is a great example of that.
Oh, yeah. Everyone should watch Harlan County, USA.
Yeah, if you want two films that encapsulate Appalachia and the struggle and the class and the poverty and the economics and the stereotypes, it's Liz Barret and it's Barbara Koppel. Like, those are the two you go to. But I think that's why her telling the story was so powerful. And one thing I was going to tell you, I hadn't thought about this till we were talking, but, you know, one of my best experiences working with Liz over the years was I was 22, and she had been part of this grant to bring a group of Indonesians to East Kentucky for like 2 weeks one summer. And they were going to learn, it was an exchange about cultural differences and similarities in mountainous regions on other sides of the world, which was like incredible. And I'll be the first to tell you, at 22, did not fully understand just how incredible that was. And so that summer I was like, I will do anything to be part of this. So I cooked for like a group of 25 Indonesians, which, let me tell you, I was just laughing about this the other day. I was like, they were so miserable with my cooking because, one, we don't have a lot of spices, and two, I had never ate anything with a spice myself at this point. And so I was like, it's mashed potatoes. And they were like, they were so hungry. But they had like came and documented and experienced Appalachia. And it was really powerful because I remember at one point they were just like, this is not the America we were promised. And like they were like disappointed, but then also like really loved where they were at and understanding like America's bigger than what you see on mainstream stuff. And then the next year I got to be part of a cohort that flew back with Elizabeth and create media there in Yogyakarta, Indonesia. And I tell this story because I had learned media and storytelling under leaders like Natasha Watts and Liz Barret, who were both Eastern Kentucky filmmakers who really felt like they had to fight for their identity to be legit filmmakers in this world and grow up in this region. And then I was in Indonesia in a culture I didn't understand, with language I didn't understand. And I was creating media around a 18-year-old dangdut dancer who, in America, it would have looked like pop dancing, like high school dance team stuff. But in Indonesia, it had like this really risque like feel to it. And like at one point we were just like, they're just dancing, that's not a big deal. Then we went to a performance and we saw how it was a mostly male crowd and how objectified these young girls were in costumes that here would have felt normal, but they're, and so I just remember us editing. We had to edit in Indonesia. And it had been really complicated and nuanced because we only could understand what was happening through a translator. We knew that we didn't feel good as young women, how we were treated in this back room at this club as we filmed these young girls, and like the dynamic of like them trying to make money to support their dreams, but also like what does it mean for one culture for it to not feel risque, but another it feels incredibly risque. And like, we were just trying to break all this down as we edit, and we were like crying. It was me and another young girl filmmaker, Brittany Hunsaker, and we were just crying in the room. And I was like, it's because we've been taught to scratch below the surface. It's because we know this camera's a weapon. And it was a really complicated piece to make. And we only had like a week to make it, which was wild. And I remember Liz coming in and being like, you all have given it a lot of thought. You've put a lot of care into it. The fact that you care means you've already done more than like most people would in the situation. Wow. But really just had to talk us through like editing the film and not feeling guilty about representing a region that we weren't fully invested in. Yeah. And from that point on, I really didn't tell any other stories outside of Appalachia. Yeah. Because I don't want to do an injustice to a community I can't fully understand.
Yeah, and it's after you witness so many injustices happen in the storytelling of your region, it's just, I 100% get that. Yeah.
Even people who've lived here for years.
Oh, yeah.
Like, even people, like, I grew up in McRoberts and Neon and, like, they're really small towns. And I know the struggles. I see them. I'm aware. I also know I had a lot of joy and a lot of like really beautiful moments in my life that I would not trade. And I'm still here. I'm still investing in those communities. And so I love them and like can be critical of them. But like I remember a woman filmmaker who's lived here for years one time, like went to downtown Neon and then she came back and she was like, I went to film downtown Neon, but it just looked like poverty porn. And I was just blown away. I was
like, you can't find the beauty in it.
How can you do the work you do and tell me that story about my own community and not expect me to be offended by that? And that's one of those moments where I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long you've been here. It matters how you engage with the community and like all sides of the community and not just like the side that you align with the most. Like really being a part of the entire community.
Yeah. I think about that a lot too, because I'm not, by no means do I want to get into politics on this.
But don't you?
Now. I mean, it's all political. It truly really is. Yeah. I just think about this because I often have to explain to people, like, I believe what I believe, but that doesn't mean that I feel like I can write anybody off.
Right.
And I think there is a lot of, on both sides, but really on both sides, I think people want to write the other side off. Yeah. Yeah, this is like a whole other podcast, but I'm like, just the way that like everything has become this fandom. Politics is like fandom, and your side can never do wrong. No one is in my mind, no one is above critique, but like that is not the way we are operating right now, which is why we are so broken. Because everyone can be critiqued. We witnessed it with the release of Taylor Swift's album to make it not political, but I'll keep that where it is. But like, no one is above critique. Yeah. And I think that when you really feel that, and when you really, like, that is sort of something that guides you, you recognize in everyone, like, there is joy, there's pain in everyone, there is humanity in everyone. Yeah. And that's really, I think, oftentimes what I've witnessed is like with some folks' storytelling, they can't find the humanity in others.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's exactly it. I think you don't have to love everyone, or you don't have to love everyone's opinion. But if you truly want the world to be better, you've got to love everyone and try to move everyone forward.
Absolutely. Yes.
And like Liz is part of this group of women who really empowered me to feel that way. And like a funny note that I'll share about Liz is like one of the reasons why I loved Liz is like if you're like a young artist and you're trying to find your way, especially in this region, there's like a look you have to have.
Oh, yeah. I've got it on right now. I've got my flannel on.
There's like, you know what I mean? Like, and
This
it's
is
almost,
my husband's. This isn't mine. No, I'm just kidding.
but like it's everyone, right? Like it's like there's like you have to you can only listen to certain style of music,
Yep.
and you can only dress a certain way, and you have to read. And this is no offense to Wendell Berry; he's a great author, but you have to read more Wendell Berry books than this person read. And fun fact, I've actually never really read a whole lot of Wendell Berry other than what I had to in college, because I was always like, I was living it. I was living Appalachia.
Yeah.
I didn't need to read about it in a book. I grew up with it. And so whenever I came up, you know, I'm the youngest of a group of girls who were cheerleaders and homecoming queens, and like makeup was very important and taught to us, but also grew up like the fat girl out of all those girls. And so I felt out of place growing up, but I tried to emulate them. And so I think that led to like the artist sulky vibes I had, you know. But then I also was like raised in a culture where like your eyeliner was important. You don't go down the road without it. And then you go into the artist community and it's like, well, you're not punk enough to be here, or you're not artsy enough, or, you know, you don't wear the right grainy boots or whatever to like be in this space. And Elizabeth was a homecoming queen from Hazard, Kentucky. And she looked incredible every day of her life. She shows up like hair done, makeup done, and, you know, she loved a good scarf.
Yes.
But it was like really powerful for me to see a woman who looked like women from my community creating media.
Yes.
She was not coming in and cosplaying, and she wasn't growing up here and adapting to look like a New York City, Brooklyn artist. She looked like someone I would have went to church with. But she was telling these really powerful stories that question narratives. And I was just like, oh, it's okay if I always look like a substitute teacher.
Yeah.
I still get to make media that asks questions. And like that honestly was one of the most powerful parts of me with Elizabeth, is that she stayed true to who she was. She looked like herself, but she created media that really pushed boundaries.
It's multiple levels of subverting stereotypes.
Yes.
And I think about whenever I go present or something, like I do think about my presentation in that moment, because I want to feel accessible to people, especially women. And really my vibe is like, well, what am I feeling on the day? But at the same time, like there is an intention to it. I think that one thing that I learned from Liz is like, you are like, like we said, like she held a power that she didn't realize. And it was like, it influenced us so much. Like I was like, okay, I'm noticing like the way she carries herself, like the way she moves, the confidence.
Yeah.
It's just like, I can be that. I can do that. I remember thinking like one of the first like speaking things someone invited me to was like some sort of Appalachian media, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, this is actually a story about you, just FYI.
Oh, wow.
I thought to myself, I am not the person that needs to be doing this. Like, I'm not qualified. And I remember you were like, if you're not going to do it, who is? Who else here is going to do that? And I was like, oh, she's right. She's right. You know?
Yeah.
And it's just like witnessing. I think a lot of that has to do with just witnessing someone like Liz.
Yeah.
Be so confident and hold that space, and like how it rubbed off on both of us.
And kind.
Yes.
Kind. It feels like there's never enough space for women in Appalachia to succeed, and in general, and especially in media.
Yeah.
And so like if you get success, then like how do you cut the next person out so you can retain that success? We don't talk about this enough.
No, we don't.
But it's very hard. Like, and like once you maintain success, or once you achieve success, you feel like a target.
Yes.
It's really cutthroat. And Liz always was an example of like, I'm going to make it, and then I'm going to pave the way for you to make it too.
Mm-hmm.
That is, sorry, I'm going to cry now. That is what was so powerful about Liz for me, is that she always was so kind in like making sure opportunities came up to me when I felt like others weren't. And I didn't see her do it just for me. I saw her do it for countless women. And I saw it didn't mean the path got easier, but at least you had someone on your side who like really, truly valued you and supported you. And I have tried really hard to emulate that in any work I've done, is like, you know, how do I pull in the next person and give them space? And she was just is and has been a really good example of like, there's room for all of us at the table to do this.
Yeah. I'm sorry I got you crying, because I'm about to pivot to something that is also hard topic. I want to talk about your current work and how you got to your current work too. So your project that you are, it's already launched. I was going to say launching. It's launched.
It's launched.
It's in the world. Exciting.
Yeah.
Your project is called Worthy Ground, and could not be more relevant, unfortunately, than right now. If you want to talk a little bit about how you got into, what this work is and how you got into this project.
Yeah, so Worthy Ground is a project I recently launched. It's a media storytelling project. So it's part of this fantastic group called Invest Appalachia. It's about bringing in pooled resources and funds for funding opportunities and grants or loans for small businesses and organizations throughout Central Appalachia. And so their focus is like a lot on economic recovery and opportunity. And I can talk a little bit about how I ended up here with this like storytelling project, but I'm part of Invest Appalachia and was able to launch my own communications project, Worthy Ground. So Worthy Ground is focusing on disaster recovery throughout the region. And we named it Worthy Ground because the age-old question we get after we decide to stay here is why? And like people, I don't know, they realize how insulting that question is when they ask it. And so we're not telling you why, but we are showing you why we are worthy or how we are worthy. And so Worthy Ground is like, we, over the last decade, especially in Central Appalachia, have faced disaster after disaster throughout the region, and they feel like they're coming quicker, and it's impacting all of our small communities. And so now there's this real shift of not only how do we recover, but how do we make it better? How do we take a region that was already struggling economically and systemically and through infrastructure? And so how do we, if we have to go through these hardships, how do we learn from them and make them better? And so I'm really feel really honored to be able to tell the story of community. I'm going community by community and really focusing in on through short consumable media, mostly through social media, because that is the world we live in. Liz had 10 years to make Stranger with a Camera. We might have 10 weeks at tops to tell a story these days.
That's pushing it.
Yeah. That's very generous. Yeah. And people aren't going to sit down for a 2-hour documentary the way they have in the past. So how do we tell the story, keep the story of Appalachia and recovery in maybe not the headlines, but in line of sight? When you're scrolling your phone, you remember that Hurricane Helene wiped out entire communities through Central Appalachia, and you maybe live in West Virginia and didn't get hit as hard, and you're like, oh yeah, they're still recovering. Or you live in Chicago and never heard about it in the first place. So how do we like keep it in people's thought? But also, how do we encourage investment? There's so much capital that gets put into recovery, but often it goes to places like Florida, who face hurricane season more regularly, or California after the wildfires. But Central Appalachia and these very small towns and small cities also really need that investment for recovery. And like there's an opportunity to recover and make it better. But I got here because years ago, I grew up in a church and was like taught, to volunteer. And I had this really fantastic youth leader who always really encouraged us to volunteer. And so I've just always like naturally had like a soft spot, like how am I going to help people? I actually don't remember the year. It was around 20 years ago. There was a tornado outbreak in Cleveland, Tennessee, and I had family that lived there. And so I started doing like roadblocks. I was like, donate supplies, donate paper towels, donate cleaning supplies, donate money, and took a load down and like had no idea that mutual aid was a thing that was a word or a phrase or anything like that. And so that was my first disaster. And then I was an organizer, and the Harless Creek floods happened when a dam broke in Pike County, Kentucky. And I did water drives there. And then I went on to do the West Liberty tornadoes, the Gatlinburg fires. And so like all while I was doing media, on the side, I was doing disaster relief. And it wasn't until COVID when I realized that mutual aid was a thing that existed and like a network that could be created. And the East Kentucky Mutual Aid system really was getting created at that time. And then in 2022, the floods hit in East Kentucky, and I was moving out of my home to buy my my rental home of 3 years. I was moving out that day to buy my first home with my son. And the floods hit that night, and about 3 feet of water came through my house that night. And the house I bought survived, but most of our belongings were on the first floor, boxed up, ready to be moved. And so had this really surreal experience of losing a whole lot of things and dealing with that and not being able to help in my community like folks like you were able to help during that time. But also like that morning I woke up and like our home was gone. Our church was gone. The school that he was set to start kindergarten the next week was gone. My office and my workspace was gone. And so just like in a matter of night, lost everything. That was my center of being. And so like really feeling that firsthand. And over the next couple of years, really seeing how the stress of recovery is so detrimental. And like it tears. There's a lot of good that comes out of it, right? Like people step in and like people come to your community with like the best of intentions, and they help and they dig in and they muck homes and people give what they can. There's so much beauty that comes after it. But the long-term stress that is left on a community is so devastating. And like seeing that just through my work personally of like having to be part of like, how do we rebuild? Where do we rebuild? Who makes that decision? Led to like an extreme amount of just sorrow. And then as I was stepping away from that work and just needing to find healthier space for myself, Hurricane Helene hit last year. And so I immediately jumped in with Appalachia Funders Network and started like organizing some of their like immediate aftermath organizing for how to unite folks from the region who are decision makers in small towns and businesses and organizations and share resources out. And through that, was able to work with Center for Disaster Philanthropy and was just really like, Appalachia gets lost. It gets lost in the narrative. It doesn't get told. And so I was given this opportunity to spend time to create this media project. And as I started creating it, I was not going to be part of the story. Like, I was just like, I want to focus on these. Like, I just didn't even think about myself as part of the story, which is like maybe wild as I'm like sitting here saying it. And like, I am so ingrained in this story. But I was like, I just wasn't thinking of me. I was like, I'm going to go to this community and I'm going to tell this story. And as like I was talking through it with my coworkers, I was like, I just can't figure out where to start. Like, I can't figure out where to start with this, like how to start this story and like why this story needs to be told. And they were like, you have to tell the story. And like, it was one of those moments where I was like, I thought of Liz because I was like, I remember when she was like, someone came to me and was like, you have to narrate this. And so once I did that, I was like, right. Like, you know, like I have had all these connections to all these various disasters. And I also understand what it's like to go through the disaster. Yeah. And so, like,
who else?
Yeah, who else, right? Like, and unfortunately, there's many of us at this point, but maybe not many of us that are filmmakers.
Yeah.
And so it just was like, yeah, that makes sense that I have to be part of the story. And so we have just launched our first of a 4-part online video series about the 2022 East Kentucky floods. And I'm an interview and a narrator in that story, but I will go to communities all throughout Central Appalachia and talk about, and it's broken down to like, one, honor what these communities have been through, because so many of them still feel ignored and unheard. Mm-hmm. And like, it's really hard as a filmmaker to go be like, cut those wounds open. But also what I'm realizing is like, people still want to talk about it.
They still need to.
Yeah. They need you to hear the trauma they've been through. And like, we've moved so quickly in this world that they feel like they're forgotten and that no one even knew the pain they carried. And so like letting them do that. And so there's that. And then there's like, you know, the days after and like, what does it feel like? And then there's the long-term story of like, here's what's happening. Here's what we want to happen. And here's how we need you as a funder, as an investor, to help see this reality come true. And so it's just it's a deep dive into small towns in the region and how we're learning from each other, and we are trying to fight this ongoing wave and series of climate disasters that are just happening faster and faster.
It's so important because, like, I went through not to the degree that you did, but I was living in Letcher County during the 2022 flood. Mm-hmm. And just as you were talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, I woke up to a text from you that said, it was sent at 3:30 a.m. that said, please pray for me. Water's coming into the house. The sheriff is coming to rescue us. I lived on a little bit of higher ground. I said, what the hell happened last night? Like, I was, because this is a whole other thing. We had no warning, really.
Yeah.
We had no warning. So I remember waking up, and it's just like the most vivid memory that I'll probably ever have. Waking up, getting in my car because I didn't know what was going on. And I was in town at the time, and I knew that, like, I could see, like, there was no water there yet, but the river was high. Driving down, and there was a man, an older man, just walking through the street, crossing the street. And I notoriously wake up very early, so this was like maybe 6:30 in the morning, and I was like, why is he walking in the street? Mm-hmm. Why is he just? And I remember I rolled my window down because he was flagging me down. And I rolled my window down, and he's like, water's about to be over the bridge over there. And I was like, can my car make it? That was the first thing I thought about. I said, can my car make it? And he like stepped back, did a once over and said, maybe. And I was like, I drive an SUV.
He gave you the real answer.
He gave me the real answer. And I was just like, oh, what happened? Mm-hmm. And then, you know, just everything that comes after that. My life's not been the same since.
Yeah, and that's one reason why I really wanted to do this work. I was like, you know, I've always wanted to create media. And like before, I felt like I was always in a space where I was like raising the money for other people to create media. That's really just sort of naturally where I was like put. Mm-hmm. But I'm a storyteller. If you're Appalachian, you're a storyteller.
That's
and
true.
I wanted to create media, and it just became like, organically I've landed in this position, and it feels really important because, you know, Helene, like me and you both drove down after Helene
Yep.
to Burnsville, North Carolina. But also I remember going to Greenville, Tennessee, like just 2 days after Helene hit. We like loaded up sandwiches, my son and my mom and another filmmaker, Madison, loaded up ham sandwiches and chips and drinks. Because I was like, I just remember mucking and people would pull by with hot dogs and you're like, oh yeah, I've not ate today. And just like, so, you know, I went with like not this intention to document, not this intention to really give a whole lot other than just a meal. But then I got there and I was walking around the subdivision that other parts of Greenville didn't get hit hard. They were losing their water access, but they didn't flood. And so people were like almost operating like nothing had happened. And then I drove down the road and the subdivision was just totally underwater. And people are mudding and mucking. And like some of the houses didn't get hit with water, but some did. But they're looking at their neighbors who are like just 6 inches or 6 feet of water in their house. And they don't have electricity. And their yard is washed away. And you would stop to give them a meal and they would say, well, I don't need it. They need it more. I'm like, we have enough for both of you. You don't have electricity. And then one person said, oh, I didn't get any damage, but my heat pump is gone. And I was like, okay, they're going to come around and ask you if you received any damages. And I need you to tell them yes. So you talking about this experience of like you seeing it, but not experiencing it the way I did. The one thing I would like that made me want to tell the story is like when a community is hit, we all experience it. Yes, there's different degrees, you know, like having to like throw away your son's art projects he made you from preschool. It hits different, but also just like the trauma is there. That doesn't mean it's not valid. That doesn't mean you weren't impacted. That doesn't mean you didn't suffer damages. And there's like this pride in Appalachia and distrust of outside help where like we weren't really equipped to say we need help or just say like, yes, they got it worse, but I still could use this here. Also, like one of the reasons why I wanted to tell this story and like I want to encourage people, like you don't understand, like when you go through the disaster, how financially devastating it is. And like I'm an educated person. I had done disaster recovery in the past. I thought I would understand the FEMA process. Like I thought I could handle it all. But when you go through that, like really traumatic moment and everything is on its head, like you're trying to figure out how to get water, like literal water to live. You're trying to figure out how to get food. You're trying to figure out how to like, you're sleeping on a hardwood floor. Like there's just all these like really chaotic moments. And so like, I remember like I went through the FEMA process and they gave me $1,500 and I took it.
Yeah.
I took it. I didn't appeal, even though like now I'm like, that is wild. I would have told anyone to appeal that, but I took $1,500 because I was like, I was a renter. At least I got something. But then like 6 months later, not even 6 months, like 4 or 5 months later, you got to put up your Christmas tree. And I remember opening my Christmas tree in the garage because I thought it survived. And 3-month-old flood water came out and I got emotional and puked.
I remember that.
I just cried and puked. And then I was like, I just spent $200 on that tree last year. And like my kid's been through this traumatic thing and he has to have a tree. And like, I had to buy all new furniture and, you know, you're just like all these little things add up. And every season it would like add up. You're like, why don't I have a lawnmower? Oh yeah, that's why I don't have a lawnmower.
Yeah.
And then you look back and you're like, I just took $1,500. Or anytime I would like get any like resources donated to me, I was so grateful for anyone who was showing up to help me. I was like, here's gas money. Here, let me run and get lunch. And so like, I really had like maybe $10,000 overall given. I kept none of it. I kept none of it. I financed furniture. It was just wild. And so now I'm like, I want people to understand, like, yes, look out for your neighbor, but also like a disaster is financially devastating and it is a long haul. And so like, how do you, one, prepare, but how do you, two, accept the help when it comes? And so I think it's just really important to like go into these communities, hear these stories, and then be like, have you tried this resource?
Yes.
And so like one of the, like the very first story I just put out I covered a business in downtown Neon that operated the front of their business for years as a gift shop, floral shop. It's one of the only storefronts in downtown Neon, but the back of it they've used as a dance and baton studio for young girls. And like these kids in Neon, like one, it's the only storefront in Neon.
And Christmas parties occasionally, family Christmas
parties. Yes, you know. Well, I was a silver spinner myself. Like I was part of this
married
program.
into the family.
Yeah. But like going in and like realizing like it's been 2.5 years, 3 years now since the flood, and like their roof got damaged, but they're an older couple. This is all of their life's work has been put into this building. They ran the front part of the building to fund the youth programming. We're like, they get kids off buses. They cook for them for free. They're not charging these kids or families. It is childcare. It is food access. It is extracurricular activities that they are providing mostly for free, or one parent told me $5 a month.
Wow.
And like they're doing it all for free because they love their community and they're not ready to retire. But also it's $25,000 to put a roof on that building.
Yeah.
And they lost not only their business, but all of their stuff in their garage and their basement of their home during the floods. And so like one of the things I get to do with this program is like with Worthy Ground is like, one, tell the story, but two, they have a GoFundMe. And I get to say, you can be a part of like helping this really institutional part of this town recover. And so I'm just excited to be able to like tell stories and also feel like I'm not extracting these stories without trying to leave something in its wake. And I can't do that all the time. Like it's just not a reality. But what I can do is like bring awareness to them. And if they have something available, say like, you know, if you have a GoFundMe or you have a fundraiser coming up, like, let me know. Let me put that as part of the story. Or like, hey, I know this organization that's giving these grants. Let me connect you to this person.
Yeah.
And so it gives me, it's helping me recover from my own trauma.
Yeah.
To like, and it's hard.
Absolutely.
There are days like I'm editing someone crying over and over and over. And I'm like, it might be me in my own interview. And it gets really hard and heavy. And I have to just be like, I got to walk away for a little bit. But seeing it be well received and seeing people feel heard and like being able to, again, understand them because I am from here.
Yeah.
Like I'm not that. And like, that's one thing that Bonnie had said to me. It was like, so many people come in, they want our story, but they leave us with nothing. And I was like, I can't guarantee I can leave you with anything, but I will make as many connections for you as I can. And like, she has that level of trust with me. And so it's a really powerful story that I get to tell and feel really honored to tell.
You mentioned that we went down to, I think we went to Burnsville.
Yes.
Immediately the weekend. No.
It was like 4 or 5 days.
4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
I know that we couldn't take the interstate. It wasn't open. Yeah. I remember that. It was but we went down to Burnsville, North Carolina, and
we don't know how we got there.
We don't. If someone said, you got to figure that out again, I'd be like, sorry,
couldn't do it.
It's never going to happen again.
Yeah.
Beautiful drive though.
Yeah.
But I think both of us felt like we had to go.
Yeah.
Because we'd been through it.
Yeah.
And we had this knowledge for some reason. We had this knowledge of like, here's everything that you're going to need to do in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And here's what the next 3 months is going to look like. And I remember we were driving around and we saw destruction and just, I'm never going to be able to describe how bad it was.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to try. But a hurricane hit Western North Carolina.
Yeah.
No one ever thought that would happen, right? But I remember we were seeing like destruction, damage, and all this stuff. And being who we are, you were immediately like taking pictures. And I remember we had this moment where we were like, should we show these to people? Like, you know, it was like we were documenting, and it was very much like we were documenting the destruction, like in nature. But we both were like, is this something we need to post? Is this something like, do we make people aware of how bad it is? Because at that time, also like this was before anyone had internet, anyone had electricity down there. They didn't have water. Like it was truly, I don't know. I don't even know what to compare it to. But I remember we went and met Crystal
Yes.
at the real estate agency. And she thought another hurricane was coming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She thought another hurricane was coming.
Yeah.
Because that was the rumor.
Yeah.
And they didn't have anything. And I remember we were both like, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay.
But a cold front's coming.
Yes.
Remember, like, it's going to snow.
It's going to snow.
You don't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she had no idea. And I just was like, in that moment, I was like so thankful that we were able to be there. And also, like, I was having all these thoughts of like, is this like, did we go through this to help these people?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just this whole thing. And I really feel like you doing this work is like the full circle for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And also, I wanted to tell you, I posted about Worthy Ground on my TikTok, and Crystal commented on it.
Oh,
I know, I'm about to cry.
oh no, me again.
But Crystal reached out and she was like, I will never forget you guys coming to help us. And gosh,
Yeah.
I've never cried on this podcast, Willa. This is so us. This is so us.
Yes.
But she was like, I remember you guys coming and I'll never forget it. And I'm so glad that you guys, it was something like, I'm so glad that you guys are going to be able to spotlight what's going on.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, all your flowers.
Oh,
Give you
thank
all
you.
the flowers.
Thank you. It's and Jessica, like, I'm so happy, like, that I get to do this journey with you because, like, you did so much after the 2022 floods. And I just remember, like, having this moment of just like, thank God she knows how to do this and she can do this. Because, like, this is, you know, there's these great women all across East Kentucky, Misty Skaggs, who, like, in these moments step up and, like, in my local community, you have such a regional pool and a statewide and like Appalachian pool. But in my local community, anytime something happens, I automatically get messages. It's like, how do we help? When are you going? And I just remember, like, when the 2020 floods hit, just feeling like so worthless.
Yeah.
And I had to really forgive myself for that. But getting to see you do it and just, like, learn from you and learn, like, the networks you were creating and the ways you moved, and then getting to go on that trip with you and, like, watching you go in and, like, coach, like, you coached them, and it was incredible. And I think even to me, like, there was a point of me on that trip where I was like, I remember, like, a year, I don't even remember, like, there was, like, a year, like, maybe 6-7 months after the flood in 2022, we were, like, in a meeting, and they're like, there's a difference between trauma and traumatized. And I was like, oh, it's just trauma for me. I'm not traumatized. Like, I've been through a massive flood before, actually, when I was in the 6th grade. And it took me, like, a while to be like, oh, I'm traumatized.
Yeah.
And, like, going on that trip, I was like, you were coaching. You were, like, stepping in and, like, this is what we're going to do. And this is, like, you need to know this. And, like, here's how you set up the system. And I just remember sitting there watching and just be like, oh shit, I didn't realize any of this from 2022. Like, I didn't see behind the curtain there. And so, like, all that to say, like, I'm so glad I get to walk this journey with you and learn from you and work alongside you. And I feel really, really honored that I always say, like, I wish I didn't have to do this work.
Me too.
Like, I can't be like, I'm happy that I have this job I have because I do love the work I do, but I can't say I'm happy to do the work I do because it comes with so much heartache and sorrow. But I'm honored to do it because people here they deserve so much better. They deserve so much better, and they deserve support in their hardest times. And, like, we experienced firsthand, like, national politics and, like, the way this area is just so immediately degraded. And you're just like, I have fought for so many of the issues that you care about, and you just discounted the fact that I lost my home.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think there has to be this unity in approaching it. Like we were saying at the beginning, like, you don't have to love everyone's ideas, but you do have to love everyone.
Yeah.
And like, maybe that's too simplistic of a way to think it, but that's how I approach it. And that's how I get through it. That trip, if you remember, like, we drove through Beuladine.
Yes.
And I have not shut up about Beuladine since.
Oh my gosh, Beuladine. Was it like a community center?
Yeah.
Oh,
there's a community center, and like Burnsville was like incredible. And like, I'm remembering so much now. I remember us filming. I was filming, you were driving, and I was just like, and when I look back on the footage, it's crap. Like it's junk, it's garbage, because I was like so insecure about filming it. And I remember it's because I would remember mucking out my home and like literally throwing all my life's belongings on the curb, and like people were driving by filming you. And I was mucking my home in a dress with leggings and steel toe boots that were giving me blisters because they were out of rubber boots at the Walmart. And the dress was the only thing I had that survived at that point. And so like just a hot mess. And like people were driving by filming you, and you're just like, get out of here. And so like going back in after a disaster was like, I don't have pictures when I went to Greenville. The pictures I got in Burnsville was like a car turned over on its side and some Christmas trees swaying one way. And so now as I do this work, I collect footage from others. I'm like, you lived it, you experienced it. You send me what you're comfortable sending me. Because it's really, I can't go into a community and film them at their most vulnerable, hardest time without really being there and being able to be thoughtful about it.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this, and a lot of the time consumed in this project is finding footage from others who feel comfortable to share it about their own community.
Yeah. Well, I'm just so happy that you get to do this work. And like, I just think about Liz being that like connection for both of us, and just like how she sort of created this really thoughtful path to follow.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful for her, and I'm thankful for you.
Thank you. I'm thankful for you both too. I think about Liz all the time, and I just wish I was sitting on some couches with her, hearing her ideas right now.
Me too. Or just like eating lunch at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
Because why not?
Yeah.
That's when we eat lunch.
Yeah. But I'm incredibly thankful for like her and Natasha Watts and you, and like these women filmmakers, Madison Buchanan, Nick Lee. Like there's so many women filmmakers who, new and older, who have like, we've given space for each other to exist. And I'm really, really grateful for that.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Has been so this good. Is amazing. I'm so proud of you for having this.
Oh, thank you. You know, it's just one of my little ideas.
just a little something I do on the side.
Truly. Thanks so much to Willa for coming on. You can find out more about her project Worthy Ground at worthyground.org, or by searching Worthy Ground on YouTube. If you'd like to watch Liz's film Stranger with a Camera, you can find it at appleshop.org. Thank you to the Kentucky Foundation for Women for helping fund Mountain Laurel's Women of Appalachia. This podcast is produced and edited by me, Jessica Miles. Our artwork is created by Hayden Miles, and our theme music is produced by Kenny and Hayden Miles. If you'd like to support the show, you can find me on Substack at mountainlaurels.substack.com. You can also follow the show on Instagram. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another new episode. Talk soon!